All right. Hey, thanks for joining us again at the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast. This is either going to be completely awesome or it is going to just fall off a cliff terrible. Either way, if it goes terrible, it's completely my fault. If it goes great, it's all because of our guest. Okay. So help me welcome to the episode today, Mr. Andy Barron. Andy, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Mike. I'm up here in Biddeford, Maine, and I know you're very jealous. You told me that before we came on. It's 75 and not a cloud in the sky.
Okay, here it is 95 and no cloud in the sky, and probably 95 humidity as well here in Champaign, Illinois. Yeah.
I know how that feels.
So, Andy, you and I, and here's what I meant, listeners, when I said, this could either go really, really well or just fall off a cliff. It's completely my idea, so I take complete credit if this just fails. Andy reached out to me, I don't know, it seems like, with COVID time, I don't know what yesterday was, what 6 months ago was.
I don't think any of us do.
Exactly. Andy reached out and I had put out a casting call, a guest call for the podcast, and Andy hit me up through Facebook. This is why I'm a huge proponent of social media, by the way. Andy reached out to me and said, hey, you know what, if you'd be interested, I'd be interested. And I was like, yeah, of course I'd be interested. I don't know who you are. And I kept it that way. So Andy, I have done a little bit of snooping, research. We don't snoop, right? We research, stalking, whatever it's called nowadays.
Hey.
To find out the good news is you are in track and field. That's the bottom line to get on the podcast, right? You got to be track and field. So Andy, tell us, what is your current role? What do you do? Is it fan, official, USATF made? What do you do for track and field?
So right now, Mike, I am a USATF certified national official, and I also officiate in Rhode Island as well as Massachusetts, where I'm from. So that's my current role. I've been in this sport now for 26 years, and I still think I'm kind of a newcomer. But what we'll do is we'll get to the from A to Z, like how I got to there, because we all start somewhere, and I've listened to a lot of your podcasts and have been very, very impressed with the guests. And one thing I think we all have in common, we all start somewhere, and that's really, really good.
Hey, that is exactly it, Andy. I'm glad you are able to see that as a listener of the show. We named it Connections for a very specific reason. One was for people who don't know each other, was to connect them, again, on that commonality ground. But then exactly what you mentioned there is, hey, while we are all uniquely different, we all have some unique commonalities to ourselves. And certainly the one commonality for us is going to be track and field. So to your point, I'm going to let you guide this. I love this so much. Let's start with A. What is A for you when it comes to track and field?
Well, track and field is something for me, and cross country as well. Road running, all the above. I started off back in 1994, which seems like eons ago. I was a young 14-year-old man. I had no experience whatsoever. I mean, I've heard of track and field. I've heard of cross country and road running because I grew up in Massachusetts. What's Massachusetts famous for besides the Red Sox and the Celtics and the Patriots, Bruins? It's the Boston Marathon, one of the oldest marathons in the world. I've been part of it. I've ran it and I volunteered at it. Unfortunately, it was not held this year, which was it just doesn't seem fathumable.
You've run the Boston Marathon?
Yes, I did. I ran in 2009. Yes.
Wow.
It was an unbelievable experience. I mean, just think of all the amazing runners that have run that marathon, and to cross that line, it's still, I mean, it's been over 10 years and I still can't believe it. I mean, it's just really, it's such an extraordinary race, and it's just really a shame. My cousin was supposed to run this year and she was raising money for a charity. And I said, well, it's heartbreaking, I know, but you know what? It'll be back. It's just, unfortunately, right now, and New York City was just canceled as well a couple of weeks ago. I know Chicago's in limbo. Who would have ever thought that we'd even be having these conversations? But anyways, so that's how I got started. And as you can see here, it's a little faded out, but it says Blackstone Valley Cross Country. This is where I started my career in Upton, Massachusetts, one of the best trade schools in the state of Massachusetts. And that's how I got my career started. My father was a runner in high school when he grew up. And, I never really was an athlete, Mike. I mean, I was always kind of a spectator, somebody who always just kind of sat back and watched, but I never really wanted to get involved because I was afraid of failure. My brothers were standout athletes. They were baseball, football, basketball, you name it. And, my mom and dad wanted me to do something different. I needed a change. I was a young kid. I didn't want to do anything. I thought I knew everything. We've all been in
Oh,
those
yeah.
shoes before. So they told me, well, here's the rules. You're going to have to do an extracurricular activity when you get to Valley Tech. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So, but there was no football there. I didn't want to do soccer. I mean, I tried that when I was real little. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do baseball. So my father threw out this idea. He says, well, you know what? Why don't you try to run cross country? And I said, what's cross country? I mean, I've heard of it, but he says, well, it's running. And I said, the only running I do is to get to the refrigerator to grab my soda to watch the Patriots games on Sunday. That's all the running I do. But like I said, I ran a little bit when I was in middle school and whatnot. You run the mile in gym class and whatnot. But I just didn't want to do anything. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So the first day of practice, there was only 4 of us on the team. And I met this gentleman by the name of Barry Coonan, who is still coaching there 25 years later, still there.
Wow.
And he remembers it vaguely the first day. I said, okay, I'm gonna show this guy up. I mean, he's a tall guy. I'm like, and we're gonna go run 2 miles. And next thing you know, I'm left in the dust. So it's I learned very quickly that, okay, I got a lot to learn here. And I'll never forget this. I asked him after we went on the run, I said, so when's our next practice? He goes, tomorrow. I go, you mean I got to do this every day? I'm like, oh man.
You're like, wait,
what
next
did I
Friday,
get
right?
Yeah, exactly. And I said, what did I get myself into? So to say my first year of running was a challenge is an understatement.
But here's the really cool part about that, Andy. You're glossing over it here a little bit. So he said practice was tomorrow. You showed up the next day.
I did.
You didn't let the pain and maybe and you didn't use this word, this is my word, the humiliation of getting beat, the guy killing you in the 2 miles, but you didn't use that as a deterrent. You could have shied away from that. You were at a crossroads here, and instead of going the quitting route and go figuring out some other sport or some other activity, you said, man, that sucks. I got to do it again. All right, well, let's go do it again. Let me get a little bit better.
Mike, I swear to God, you and I have already met because you're like thinking the same exact way I'm thinking right now. It's really scary. It's like,
that's awesome.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And here's the other thing too. The superintendent of the school also ran with us as well. And he beat me. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm like, this is, no, exactly. And, but I tell you, and I did come back. And then I remember, running our first meet. And the freshman year, man, this was, again, I'm talking 20, some of the stuff I'm telling you right now, I have not talked about in probably 25 years. And this is, but I'm remembering it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And every single race, I finished in dead last. Every single race. I was running, maybe 35 minutes. I can't think of the exact times, but maybe 35, 40 minutes. And I'm like, what's the point of this? Like, I'm not contributing to the team. I'm like, I got coaches waiting for me. I got athletes. My teammates are waiting for me. And I'm just like, I just don't know what the point here is. But I'm going to tell you this, my last race of the season, I finished last. It was our league championship race. And I remember I didn't stop because I was walking most of my races. My goal was just simply to finish races. It had nothing to do with winning or what place to come in. It's like, you just need to finish races. And I didn't walk this last race. I finished. I came in last, but I didn't stop. And I remember I told Coach, I said, Coach, I didn't stop today. I felt really good. And I'll never, ever forget what he told me, what Barry Coonan told me. He says, good for you. He says, if you just put in a little bit more work, get a little bit more confidence in yourself, I see great things happening for you. And I was absolutely floored when he told me that, because nobody's ever told me something like that before. Like, I have literally come in last in every single race, and this guy believes in me. I'm like, okay. So I said, let me trust this guy a little bit here. Let me see what I do. So then I run track. I go out for track and field. But I was afraid of track and field, Mike, because why? Because now everybody can see you. See, in cross country, you're running
You
out
kind of
on courses and on
hide and
roads.
mhm.
Yeah. You can see I had a real
That's
big
interesting.
self-esteem problem.
Hmm.
But again, it was just, I'm in a new school. I don't know a lot of people, but I started turning it around a little bit. And next thing you know, at the end of this season, I led the freshmen in points. And I'm like, I was stunned. I couldn't
Wait a
believe it. So
minute. You went from dead last in all your
mhm,
cross country races
mhm.
to going again, sticking with it and going to track. You could have easily just like, yeah, see you next season. I only had to do one sport. I'll see you next cross country season. You join track and you end up at the end of track season being the #1 point scorer for freshmen for your school.
That is correct, sir.
Get
Yes.
out of here. That is awesome, man. That is so, so cool.
And I also had an article in the local newspaper too. Like I couldn't believe it. I'm just like, what do these guys see in me? And I just didn't. Again, I remember,
Was
again,
Barry
I'm talking.
was Barry
Sorry,
your
go ahead.
coach? That's all right. Was Barry your coach in track as well?
Yes, he was. Yep,
Dude,
he was
this
still there.
guy, let me give a shout out. Barry Coonan, right? Am I pronouncing his last
Yes,
name? Give a
Barry
shout
Coonan.
out to Barry Coonan. I tell you, here's a name that no one knows, right? Unless you're in that area. But
Mhm.
throughout the country, there are Barry Coonans everywhere in our great sport. It really shows you the positive impact you can have as a track and field coach. He looked at you at the end of season and said, you know what? Good job. You keep working and put a little bit more work in. You could really do something. And I don't want to overstate it and say it changed your life, but at the very, very least, it gave you an injection into continuing going. Like, oh man, I have like someone else is believes in me. Like maybe I should believe in myself. Maybe I should have some self worth here. That's so amazing.
Exactly. It really is. It really is. And that's something. That's if he hadn't have told me that, I would not have. I would have
Right.
quit because I wanted to quit every single day. I didn't want
Mhm.
to do it. And I can tell you right now, if I did not start running, I really honestly don't know where I'd be in my life
Mm.
because this is part of my life. It's not my whole life, but it's part of my life. It's part of who I am. It's just, I have never stayed with something. That's the thing I'm proud of the most. I stuck with this for 26 years. It's not even, I can't even fathom it some
I
days. I'm like,
mean,
I'm still doing this.
from getting dead last in your first
Yeah.
cross country meet and walking, by the way,
Yeah.
to finishing the Boston Marathon. That's a heck of a, I can't even, if you're watching on YouTube, I can't even get in the screen what kind of gap that is, man. That is a heck of a mountain to climb. Wow.
It's
So
like you're climbing
you,
Mount Everest. I
if
mean,
he's a 10 Mount
yeah,
Everest, not even one.
I know.
Absolutely.
I
So
know.
did you continue doing cross country and track all the way through high school?
Yes, I did. I ran throughout high school, and then I went on and ran at the. Here's another thing we have in common. You coached in community college. I
Right?
ran for the community college of Rhode Island.
Yeah, is that right?
Yep.
Wow,
That's why I knew we
man.
were going to get along. He said, Mike coached community college. We're going to get along.
Absolutely. I love that's just a special,
It
special part
is.
of coaching track and field for
It
me is
is.
specifically the community college route, man. That's
And
so
my
cool.
coach, Greg Cornell, still there. 32 years. He is still there coaching as well.
Dude,
See where I'm going with this?
you guys got staying
Consistency.
power. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
staying power up there. Holy
Yeah.
cow.
And I start his meets now too. So it's like, and I have my daughter running around there the other day. She's telling him what to do with coaching. And it's just, it
That's
was great. It was
so
great.
awesome. So did
It
you
really is.
go on from the 2-year to a 4-year institution or how'd that work out?
Yep. Yes, I did. Then I was recruited to run at Westfield State University in
Hmm.
Western Massachusetts. And I ran there for 2 years under a great coach by the name of Bob Roush, who also ran for the University of Wisconsin lacrosse, one of
Oh
the
yeah.
biggest Division III programs in the
Mhm.
country. Tremendous guy. I actually talked to him a few weeks ago. He's doing well. And he retired about 10 years ago from coaching.
Mhm.
But a solid program, great program at Westfield State University. And then after that, I got out of college. I was really burnt out. I was really tired, just from all the workouts and the training. And, I kind of lost myself for a little bit, but then I started running again. And I kind of always feel like I'm a guy I've just always kind of been there. I'm not the
Mhm.
guy who's got the big time times or the huge accolades, but I'm kind of always that guy who's just there. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, Andy's officiating. Oh, he ran a race this weekend, or he's helping somebody else out. In fact, this past spring, the spring before, I went back to Blackstone Valley and I officiated a meet there, and an incredible moment. I had not
That's cool.
officiated a meet there since I had graduated from high school in 1998, and I actually met up with a friend of mine there whose daughter is throwing for there, and she was a senior and I was a freshman when we were competing, and it really brought back a lot of nostalgia, and
You
just talking
know,
about the old times. Yeah, yeah, it was great.
you mentioned you're the kind of guy who is just always there, kind of in the background. You're not going to be the guy in the forefront. And some people, Andy, would think about people that are listening. Typically, they're track coaches or in the tracking world. They're thinking about that, and maybe they think of that as in a negative. Here's what I would challenge. We can all, whether we're officials, coaches, athletes right now, we can all think of people that even made it to the whatever you want to call the quote on big time is. They made it to the front. They ran the fastest, or they became a coach or whatever, and they're not involved at all anymore. They quit. They're gone. To me, I started asking myself, well, what is better? Is it the quote unquote flash in the pan, someone who ran their high school and was the number 1 2-miler, but now doesn't coach, doesn't officiate, doesn't even watch track meets, or the guy who, by your own standards, was not the guy that was leading the 2-mile or anything like that, but is still here contributing, still loves the sport, introducing his family and kids to the sport. I'm a consistency guy. I'm a longevity guy. I think that is much more valuable to our sport and to our society overall.
That's a great point, Mike. In fact, I remember last year I took my daughter to some road races, and she was just running around and with other kids as well, and she had a great time. And that's to see, that's where I get out of it. It's like my daughter's doing something that I love to do, and she's just out there having a blast and having fun. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of people that do come and go in this sport, and we don't hear of. And then there's people that have been in it for 50 years. I mean, I still consider myself kind of a newcomer, as somebody who's still. I'm always going to be involved some way or another. I don't know what I'll be doing, but I started as a runner, then I coached. Now I'm officiating. It's like I've kind of gone through all the all the channels here.
All the different
And
rings of track. That's right.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So let me just tell you this: if you told me that today, this year, 2020, July 6th, that I would be doing this for 26 years, going from last place to first place, running in 2 colleges, being an All-American in a college, a conference selection in one, running marathons, running close to 500 races, I'd be like, and I'd be talking to you today, Mike Cunningham, I'd be like, you're absolutely crazy.
You got those.
Nobody.
You got those way out of order, man.
Yeah, I know. I
Right on the
know. I
bottom
know.
is talking to me. The
Yeah.
races, the experiences that you had are, to me, is
Yeah.
always going to be number 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and thank you for that. That means a lot to me. You would say that.
Sure.
So
Sure.
go back, and it's hard when you're 21, 22, you're a college age kid.
Mm.
At that point, did you have any thinking of what track would be for you? Did you think, oh yeah, I want to be a coach, or I want to be an official, or anything at all at that point, or where were you at?
Well, Mike, I just, the better I got at the sport, the more I loved doing it. And I said, I got to stay involved. Like, I can't stop. I got to somehow always keep my name in the hat. And, I just decided when I got out of college, I was at a crossroads. I'm a young guy. It's like, I don't want to just work to work. I want to do something that I really, really enjoy. So what I did was I started throwing my resume out there. And, Coach Roush told me, so, you should try to coach. There's always somebody looking for a coach. You can definitely find somewhere to go. So I got a phone call from a gentleman over at Framingham State University, which is about a half an hour outside of Boston. And his name was Jason Hewitt, who is now coaching at Bryn Mawr University in Pennsylvania, He's been there for 10 years. Tremendous, tremendous guy. Also ran for Tufts University as well. And he said he was looking for an assistant. So I said, okay. We sat down, we talked, and we hit it off right away. And he really, really taught me a lot about the sport. He then went to Mount Holyoke after, this was in 2006, by the way.
Okay.
He then got a job at Mount Holyoke, which is out in Western Mass. And then I took over the job, and I was the head coach there for 6 years. We had, again, started off with a very small team. And then my last year, you know, we worked our way up. We built a program. We built a men's program and a women's program. And, you know, today they're doing great things. And it's really, really great to see. And that's really where I got my coaching started. And then I ended up going to coach track at Northern Essex Community College. There we go again, another community college. A great program up in Haverhill, Massachusetts. And I went in there, though, with a big challenge, because we had a national champion from the year before coming back. And I said to myself, "Ooh, this is going to be one of the biggest challenges." Yes. And here's the other thing, because her coach was also her high school coach. So they had a really tight relationship, which is great, but she ended up stepping down. So here I come in, and I remember meeting her. Her name was Noelia Figueroa. Amazing, amazing.
Cool name. Yeah.
Best athlete I've ever coached in my life, and one of the nicest as well. She actually was just inducted last year into the Northern Essex Community College Hall of Fame.
Way
I had
cool.
the chance to go up. It was great. I met her family, and I got to meet her twin brother as well, and it was fantastic. And I remember telling her, I said, you know, Noelia, I said, it's going to be even harder for you to repeat as champion, because here's why. I said, you have a bullseye on your back. Everybody wants to be the champ. Everyone wants what you got. This is going to be a mental challenge. You're already great. You're fine. But it's how you're going to handle it mentally. And that's where I tried hitting home to her. And we ended up developing a great relationship. And we also had my assistant coach, Michael Gay. He ran with Noelia as well. So he knew a lot of things about her and what her weaknesses were, what her strengths were, what she likes, what she doesn't like. And that really helped me out a lot, because this is a partnership as well. And, you know, I had to learn a lot as well. But that's what I told her. I said, you know, this is going to be a big challenge for you. And she wanted to win the 100. That was the thing, because she won the 200 the year before, and she wanted to win the 100. And she became the first person in the history of the school, man or woman, to win back-to-back national championships, which is just, you go back-to-back. I mean, that's just, that's a whole different level. Absolutely. So proud of her. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. It's almost 10 years ago since she did this. And what an amazing, amazing story.
Talk to me about your coaching, from head coaching to the community college coaching, because I'm just so impressed with a guy like Barry, and obviously the coaches you had at the other two stops that you had impact. How much of their style to coaching you impacted you and your style to coaching at your stops?
Each one of them, I used one of their styles. You know, Barry and I, you know, we bumped heads a lot. Hey, look, every coach and athlete, they want to win. And he's the type of guy, he wants to win. And I want to win. And that was kind of, you know, the mentality that I bought when I went to college. Greg Cornell taught me, he says, hey, you want to get better, you got to put in the mileage, plain and simple. He was an old school guy. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who ran a 2:24 marathon, by the way. Mm-hmm. So I think, he knows what he's talking about, you know, mm-hmm. and he's been doing it for so long. So that was the mentality that he brought into me. And Coach Roush taught me how to be a part of a team, how to work, that when you get into the real big meets, like, it's not about you today, it's about your team. What are you going to do to help your team today? And that's the stuff that not that the other guys didn't, they did, but he taught me more 90% mental, 10% ability. That's what he always told me. And that sticks with me every single day, because he's right. I'm like, you know, these three guys are just brilliant men, really. They all have something that's so great, and they're so consistent because they've coached for so long.
Right. Yeah.
That you got to listen to these guys. And of course, they helped me tremendously. I mean, if I didn't have those guys, I really I really don't know how I would have made out. And, you know, I've been out of the coaching now for about 8 years. So it's been a while. You know, things change every single day
Mhm.
with coaching, but those are the type of things that I took going into my coaching. And yeah, it definitely, it helped me tremendously. No doubt about it.
Did you ever have a time where you had an athlete on the team that reminded you of you? And what I mean by that was a kid who maybe struggled or just was just there. Did you ever get an opportunity to kind of almost pay back Coach Coonan and be able to encourage someone else?
No question. I had a gentleman at Framingham State University by the name of Tom Ransford, who was cut from the soccer team. He's a soccer guy, never ran a day in his life. He came and ran for me. And again, he struggled a lot when he first started. But by the end of the season, I got him down from not even being able to finish a race to running about 35 minutes for 5 miles. Now, you don't understand. This kid had no experience. He
Yeah.
dropped 20 pounds, too. His father came up and told me, he says, I've never seen Tom in this type of shape before in his life. And I remember, you know, he said we had a little article written about us in the paper at school, and he said, like, you know, because I won Coach of the Year that year. I don't like talking about it, but I did.
It's a
And
little
he
humble
mentioned,
brag, everybody.
yeah, yeah.
Deserved
So,
brag, though. That's a deserved
yeah,
one.
yeah. And I remember him saying, Coach, there's no coach who deserved to win that more than Coach Barron. He believed in me. He made me want to come to practice. He made me want to do better in school and whatnot. And we all hopped to that beat. And it was very special.
I was gonna
Very,
say
very special.
when he said that, what feelings did that invoke for you when someone said, "Hey, Coach Barron believed in me"? How does that make you feel?
It's exactly what Barry Coonan told me 26 years ago. He believed in me. It's like, it was almost like the roles were reversed. And, you know, again, if I had not gone through a lot of that, I don't know if I would have had that
Mhm.
mentality. You know, coaches, we're such unique people, because I believe a lot of coaches only really want to see what you can do for them. But I believe it's what can you do for your athletes. You know, I still have athletes contact me today, Mike. You know, one of my athletes became a nurse. She asked me to write a recommendation for her.
Mhm.
Absolutely. You know, one of my athletes is now training to become a doctor. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just it's so great to see. And oh, it made me feel great. It made me feel like, wow, you know, that's why I reached out to want to do this whole interview, because, you know, if there's just one person out there who's listening today and listen to us talk and be like, hey, I'm in Andy Barron's shoes. If he can do it, then I can do it.
Yeah, that's my spotlight, Andy. I'm the guy who's like, "Look, man, if I can do this, you can do this. Trust me." I did want to ask, have you ever gotten a chance you said Barry's still coaching
He
today.
is. Yep.
Did you ever get a chance to go back and tell him, like, "Hey, man, the belief you had in me is what led me to be able to do X and Y and Z, and more importantly, beyond the accolades of Coach of the Year and coaching national champions, is really you taking Barry and your other coaches, their legacy, and amplifying it, right?" So Barry poured into you, you get to go pour into 100 other kids. Those 100 kids grow up and pour into another 100. You see how that exponentially factors out and it takes Barry's legacy and lessons and amplifies it by a large margin. Have you ever had a chance to go back and tell Barry what that meant to you and how it helped other people?
Tell him all the time. I mean,
Good.
I just say thank you for everything. And you know, I definitely wasn't. I mean, I don't think nobody ever saw this coming. Like, I never was going to be. I don't think nobody thought I would be his number one guy and be his runner and be the guy who literally comes from last place to coming into first place. I mean, it's just, we talk about this all the time. He told me, so I remember in 1994, the last runner I saw coming in at the Colonial Athletic League Championship, which is our conference, was you. And then 4 years later, the first runner I saw coming in was you, which is like, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you literally went from worst to first. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty,
You
I
know,
can't.
in some circles, they'd make a movie about you. I mean, that's what you make movies about. Honestly, that's what movies are
Yeah,
about.
oh, I've had people tell me that before. I mean,
Golly.
really, Mike, the other day I thought of that because I was going through some stuff in my house and I pulled out the medal and the article. I'm like, I can't believe that I did this, really. I mean, it just doesn't seem possible. Like, I mean, I tell people this, like, wait a minute, that doesn't happen. I go, and I remember the day of the race. I remember like, just like it was yesterday, because I said to myself, I'm not going to win this thing. This is all, because you got to remember, Mike, I was winning like every single race that year, but now here comes the big race. What's going to happen today? And I win, but it's just like, I say, this isn't going to happen. I'm going to trip. I'm going to fall. I'm going to have a bad race. But I tell you what, and I had to do it on an opponent's course, which was even harder. And I just was like, it, I can't even describe it. It was just, wow.
I'll say you're
And honestly,
20 years
I
later,
re-
you're struggling
yeah,
to put those
I am,
emotions and everything into actual
because
words. Wow.
because I've never really talked a lot about this, because I'm talking about this with you, and it's just I'm already getting fired. I want to go out and run again. I mean, I'm all. I'd
There
be
it
a
is.
lot slower, but
I was looking for what is the difference between you and me. Besides, you won, I didn't win anything. That right there is the difference. None of this makes me want to go run, buddy. I get so motivated by you guys and coaches, and I'm like, oh, good, I'm motivated to do another interview. I am not interviewed.
I just went out and ran. I ran 3 miles yesterday on the water. Oh, it was great. I just
Oh,
felt
good
so
for
great
you.
because I wanted to get myself ready for this, because this is very important to me and it's important to you,
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
important, I think, to all the other listeners as well. I
Agree.
wanted. I mean, but seriously, I mean, just being able. And by the way, I was the first one. I was the first one because we had switched over leagues, and I was the first one to ever win a league championship and individually. And I'm like, wow, like it's just.
Wow.
I mean,
That's so
it's just
cool.
really. And I went back to Valley Tech this past February. I took my daughter to a basketball game, and I saw Dr. Fitzpatrick there, who was the superintendent, the same gentleman that beat me in a race when I was a freshman. And we laughed about it. We talked about it. And I took my daughter into the gym, and she was running around, and I saw all the banners hanging up, and I'm like,
Mm.
wow, this is just. It's just
Now,
so surreal, and I'm so proud of all the other athletes, and of course Coach Coonan, and also another great coach they had there too for many years, Coach Grimaldi, who did a great job there. I want to make sure he gets his props as well, and
absolutely.
and Rich Brennan, another guy who's also retired. But just to see how far we've come
Yeah.
as a program and all the athletic programs, and I mentioned to you earlier, I'm in the radio business. I got to cover our team winning the Super Bowl a few years ago at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, where the Patriots play,
Hmm.
and that was great too. And just like wow, like just it's so great to see. It really, really is. And
Now, what we
you know,
really
I,
want to know,
yeah.
you said you visited back the high school. Did
Mhm.
you challenge the superintendent to another race? That's what we really want to know.
No,
No
no,
rematches?
no, no grudge matches. No. But you know what, Dr. Fitzpatrick, I got to say, he was another great supporter of me too. I remember every time I'd win a race, he'd come watch me run. Anytime I win a race or do well, and he would send my parents a card in the mail saying how proud we are of Andrew and how great he's doing. And I'm like, wow, that's just so great. I
That's the
mean,
type of educators we need more of.
we sure
Absolutely.
do.
That's so
We sure
cool.
do. We sure do. And
So we talked about being A to Z. Where are we? You said you got out of coaching about 8 years ago. What led to that, and how did you keep track and field in your life?
well, while I was coaching, I had a friend of mine because I felt like I had so much more to learn because and I looked at these 3 gentlemen that coached me. I'm like, man, these guys know just so much more than I do. Like, what can I do to learn more? So a friend of mine said, why don't you become an official? And I said, well, I don't know about that. I don't know a
What,
lot. So I said,
yeah,
okay,
what was your hesitation? Was it a
well,
status
just,
thing, like, oh, the officials are over there, or was it a lack of confidence of, I can't
I'd
learn how
say,
to
yeah,
judge
I'd
others?
say
Well,
definitely both, because, again, it's just like officials, oh, I don't want to make a bad call. I don't want to screw something up. But, it also was a good job to make some extra money because I said, hey, they actually pay him pretty well. And I love doing the sport. So I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. So I signed up for the Mass Track officials. And I remember going to my first meet and I worked the finish line and it went well. And then after I was done, one of the gentlemen who was running the meet said, "Hey, I need a shot put official for next week." And I said, "Mike, I've know nothing about the shot put." He goes, "That's okay. I want you to go, and I want you to run the event. And if you have a question, you're just going to ask the other official that's working with you. But I want you to run the event." And I went over there, and it went really well. And I really started enjoying this. And then next thing you know, another official asked me, "Hey, can you do the long jump for me next week? I need a long jump official." I'm like, "I don't know anything about the long jump. I don't. I mean, I know of the events, but I don't know anything about them." So then I start doing all these little things. And then they start asking me, "Hey, can you become a starter?" I'm like, "I don't know how to start anything." And then like, "That's okay. I want you to learn how to do it." And then next thing you know, I'm starting meets. Then I'm officiating, discus and the high jump. And next thing you know, I'm officiating the NCAA championships in Alabama. And it's like, I never expected it. I just was going to do it to work some high school meets and make some extra money. And next thing you know, I'm a USATF official, and I'm working national championship meets, and I'm traveling all over the place. It's just like
So
it's great. It's
let's
crazy.
explore this part more,
Yeah.
because you're the first official we've had on
Hmm.
the podcast. We all know officials. I'm doing air quotes here if you're listening. And what I mean by that is if you're an athlete, you have interacted with officials in your event, whether it was the finish line, like you first worked on your very first officiating job, or shot put, long jump, whatever. If you are a coach, you've interacted with officials, whether they made a supposed bad call. That's another air quotes there. I should say a call maybe you didn't agree with.
Sure.
We all have, and even as an equipment manufacturer, as when we work at NCAAs, and we've done Olympic trials and such, we work
Yep.
hand in hand with our officials as they learn how to use the laser measuring systems, how to, every piece of equipment has a little bit of a nuance. So you just want to make sure your officials are being able to focus on the athletes, not the equipment. So we go in and we do some training with them and such. So this is fascinating to talk to an official who has had experience all the way up to the NCAA championship experience. So you had mentioned, my first question I thought about with officials, you had mentioned, you started at the starting line, the next week you did the shot put, a couple weeks later, hey, work long jump. Is that pretty typical? Do officials, and maybe it matters on what level they're officiating at, do they typically know every event, or do they specialize in the throws or specialize in the jumps or what have you?
Well, we have all certain types of officials, but a great friend of mine, and I'm going to mention him today, by the name of Steve Vitonis, who has been officiating for at least 30, 40 years for USATF New England. And he told me, he said, "Andy, if you really want to get a lot of work, you got to know a little bit of everything." And that's something that I really have taken to me, because it's like, he's right. And maybe that's why I have gotten a lot of work and have done a lot of different events. But we have officials who are certainly our expertise at pole vault or high jump or throws, jumps. But for me, it's like, there's, when I get meets, because I do college meets too, as I said, some days I'm running the line, or I'm umpiring, or I'm clerking. And then there's other meets where I'm starting. So I've also announced meets, because I've been in radio for 20 years, so they like my voice. And I've announced meets at Harvard University. I've announced meets at Providence, Rhode Island. So as you can see, I'm I'm all over the place. But I think it's very, very good to be versatile, because the next thing I want to learn, as you just mentioned, is the electronic measurement, because that's something you're seeing in a lot of meets now, that especially at the pro level, they're going in that direction. And that's definitely something that, I definitely want to learn going forward. But I haven't officiated a meet since February because of the COVID situation. And,
Right.
who knows when we're going to go back. It's really anybody's guess right now.
So is it fair to say that, and we're generalizing here, so we're not talking about the one outlier and such like that. Is it fair to say that most officials have one or two events, or maybe a grouping of events that they're like they know the rules in and out? They don't need to look at the rule book except for the new rules that change here and there every year, but they know their events. And so when you get assigned to a different event, how much in advance do you know? And do you read the rule book in your section before that? I'm kind of stammering here a little bit. Maybe you.
Yeah, no. You're absolutely right. There are people like pole vault officials are pretty much very expertise in that event. Now, I've done the pole vault as well, not really at the national level, but I've done it in some small college meets and some high school meets. But we have officials that do that. I always try to look at the rule book before I do my event. And there's times where I get to a meet where an official might have called out sick or they can't come in. Okay, I'll need you to go run that event today. So there are times where you do have to be flexible. And, I also look at it too is that I'm still really a newcomer to this. I've only really been officiating for 10 years and I'm still learning a lot. There's been officials I've worked with who've been doing this for 40 something years, who have just like Steve and another gentleman I worked with, Justin Koo, who's done Olympic trials. I mean, I've just been so blessed that I've been able to be surrounded by so many great people who have so much expertise in this, and that I can continue to learn and continue to grow. But yeah, a lot of meets that you go to, you definitely have to be flexible because you just don't know. And the other thing too is, you can't be afraid to make a decision. And I think that's the biggest thing. Now, I've been on both sides. I've been an athlete and a coach. Now I'm an official. See, a lot of coaches know me because they used to coach against me. Right. And I always try to be fair. I always want to be fair. And there are decisions that are very difficult to make sometimes because they happen so fast. They can happen so fast. And sometimes, unfortunately, hey, we're human. We make mistakes too. But 9 times out of 10, we get the calls right.
What's your, I don't want to call it your favorite, maybe it is your favorite, but what's your most comfortable event? Like if you had to pick one event to coach at the Olympic trials, it's a pretty big meet to officiate at, right? Mm-hmm. What would it be?
Clerking. I just like clerking. I'm very organized because I know how to coach. There's a lot of paperwork with clerking, checking off runners, keeping them in the same area, because that's really where my expertise is. So, obviously if I got there, it would be clerking. But again, if I was asked to do something else, if I was just asked to help out in the long jump, break pits, put hurdles on the track, I'm the type of guy, I'll do whatever it takes to make the meet run smoothly. That's just who I am.
What did you do at the NCAA meet that you were at? At
the NCAA meet, Division IIs in Birmingham, Alabama, I was an umpire. And that was a tremendous experience for me. I got to work at the Birmingham Complex, which is an amazing track.
My home track, man.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And I got to umpire there, and it was great. I mean, because we were on these ladders around the track, so we got to watch the whole meet. So just seeing some of these guys run,
that's a pretty good vantage point.
Yep. So, and then they say, "Smile, you're on TV," and I'm just like, I'm laser focused on that track, because good. This is make or break it for these athletes that day.
Most of our listeners are going to be track coaches. And probably we skew higher to the collegiate coaches side and then high school coaches side after that. What is a common misconception that coaches have about officials that we can maybe dispel the myth right here?
Well, that's a great question. And I don't think there's really any right or wrong. I think that the myth is that we don't have any experience, which is really not true. I'm a former athlete. I'm a former coach. I don't even know that, but it's just, I think a lot of people might think that we're out to get them. No, that's not true at all. In fact, I've had athletes come up to me at meets, and I'm talking at the Division I and Division II level, that have asked me questions. And I've told them, they go, my coach never even told me that. I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, wow, like, how do they not know this? Like, they were stunned at some points, even at national championship meets. And like, my coach never told me that. And I'm like, well, there's a lot to learn. And I used to be a coach as well.
I was going to play devil's advocate and say that there's so much going on. A coach is doing so much. And let's not forget, at the end of the day, we are talking about 18 to 22-year-olds. I'm sure most of those were told and it was in one ear and out the other.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's where I think we can do a better job in track and field. That right now it seems, and again, broad strokes here, it seems very adversarial between officials and coaches. When in reality, I think if we got together and realized, oh, the officials are on my team, I'm on their team, our whole goal is to help the athletes do the best that they can today. So their job is to do X, Y, and Z on the track. My job was to do A, B, and C for practice and preparation for the meet. We're actually working together here for the athletes.
Mike, it's all about the athletes. And I say that, it's all about them. And like I said, I've had athletes come up to me after meets like, thank you so much. You guys did such a great job here. You're going to be here again next week. Or, because you start to get to know some of these athletes too. And they start to become comfortable with you. Hey, this is what Andy expects. This is what he's going to watch for. You start getting into a little bit of a relationship with them, and they start realizing that, hey, these guys aren't bad. I mean, they're and it's so true. And it's like, especially though, I found at the larger levels, especially at like the NCAA meets, the coaches they're very, hey, the officials run this meet. And I always say, you want to rush the event, but you don't rush the event. It's all about pace. It's all about, the athletes really at the end of the day, and the coaches appreciate when you run an efficient meet, because they have lives too. They have families as well. These kids have stuff to do. I was in their shoes once, and I know the things that they go through. And I can definitely tell you, that's the one thing I've really learned, over the years in doing this, is that one athlete told me, hey, without you guys, we don't even have any meets.
We need a system. You know how the military has the awards, the little, I can't remember the name of it.
They have like,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
You mean,
Yeah. We need that for officials.
Ranks.
Yeah, not the rank. It's their awards and stuff. And some, it's marksman and
right.
leader of a unit and things like that. We need that for officials. So maybe you would have one, a red one, and that would signify that I'm a former college coach. Maybe a white one is I'm a former college athlete, something like that. That way, when a coach turns to you and wants to be upset with you and wants to go to the, hey, Andy, you, Mr. Official, they don't even call you by name, right? Hey, official, you blew it. You have never seen a track meet in your life. I can't believe you would make that call. No one ever else would. No coach in their right mind. And you're like, actually, sir, I was you. I was a coach once, and I was an athlete. We need some kind of identification like that.
That's a great idea. It really is a great idea, because, it's the heat of the moment too. They're upset. Look, every coach is going to defend their athlete, and I get it. I get it. I was in that position once too. But sometimes if you just pull them aside and just talk to them for a little bit, okay, this is what I saw. This is what he saw. And you know what? At the end of the day, now you get back on the same page. It's just, I get it. I do. Yeah. And it's tough. And we don't want to disqualify anybody. No, we don't want anybody to have a bad experience. We don't. We're not out to get
number one myth, I think.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, we don't want anybody to have a bad experience. We want everybody to have a great experience. We want everybody to be happy. With their performances. But hey, you're going to have bad days. Things happen. I mean, that's just the sport.
How many track meets would you guess you've officiated?
Ooh, wow, that's good.
Close to 1,000, 100. What number?
I'd say close to 500 meets.
So in 500 meets, you've seen a lot of stinking track and field. And that's just as an official. Again, that's not counting what you've seen as a coach and an athlete and a fan and what have you. What has been, in the officiating side, what's the biggest memory of officiating for you, positive memory? You're like, man, out of all 500, let me tell you what, I was involved in X, or I saw this. What was it for you?
Oh man, I've done so many. It's just it's a great question. I mean, I've done so many meets, in that I've seen so many great things happen, and doing that, just I think just seeing athletes, they're just having fun and they're just happy. Just when I see it, like I've done conference meets, for example, and when I see that team win and they're hugging and high-fiving and like, man, I remember that. And
Mhm.
I remember how they feel. And, and just athletes coming up to me afterwards saying, thank you so much for being here, shaking my hand and saying, and it just really makes, hey, they do appreciate you. And that's a great thing, and I can tell you this. Last year at Milford High School in Milford, Mass, because that's where I live, I got to officiate the Special Olympics. And let me tell you, what an amazing event that was. Just to see the look on these kids' faces when they did well. And
Yeah.
I got emotional, I got to tell you. And I'm a guy who I usually keep it pretty close to the chest, but I had athletes who hugged me, and I'm like, wow, this is just great. Because I'm a
Dude,
father now, Mike.
yeah.
I have a daughter. That's what makes it worth my while.
That's cool. I love that you officiate at so many varied levels, high school and college and
Yeah.
even the cream of the cream, the Special Olympics, man. That is amazing. That
We
to me
did.
is that's the embodiment of officials. For all the officials that I've met and I've worked with I don't remember any from as an athlete because it's a long time ago, but as a coach, I remember interacting with a lot of officials, and definitely here now at Gill Athletics, I work with a lot of officials and get to interact with them. Selflessness is like the number one word I would use for officials. I mean, because let's think about it. We talk about for track coaches, well, you don't get into coaching for the money, and that's true,
No.
unfortunately. Even more so for our officials. You definitely are not doing this for the money. You're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it for the fame. I've yet to see an official make it to whatever you call the big time is.
Oh yeah.
A track
Yeah. You're
official.
absolutely right. Yep.
I
No.
mean, you are doing it out of the betterment of our sport. I mean, it's the very definition of selflessness, man. I love that. And so to do it also at the Special Olympics, man, oof, that
And,
is
and
amazing.
yeah, and much credit to Milford High School because we hosted the All-State meet there last year. We had teams coming from Cape Cod, and we had teams coming from the Berkshires and Massachusetts. We had teams from everywhere, and they just do such a phenomenal job hosting this meet. And there was just so many athletes there.
That's
It was
cool.
awesome. And working with all of them, got and I really got to credit the coaches.
Mhm.
They do such an unbelievable job. They really do. And I know some of these guys because and ladies because I used to work with them, and I really just enjoyed that so much. It was just being part of this and seeing how much fun they were having, and how much they're competing, and they're competing for their schools, and
Yeah.
they're winning medals. I mean, how can you? That's just so great.
That's
So
one of the few
great.
things in this world, like it's all positive. There's not a single negative to it,
All
man.
positive.
It's all
You're
positive.
absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So
Yeah.
let's say you had the opportunity, and we'll put you on the spot here a little bit, Andy.
Sure.
Let's say you had the opportunity to speak to and not just college, but the coaching body in general. Let's say maybe you got on the, I don't know, the number one track and field podcast in the country. I don't know, maybe you have that opportunity. What can coaches do to help officials? What would you like to see change, whether it's a rule, whether it's an attitude? What would you like to see? Maybe it's pay at meets. I don't know. What was the top thing you can think of as I put you on the spot that coaches can do to improve officials?
I believe the coaches should take the officials test as well because look, there are so many rules out there, and I'm going to be honest, I don't even know all of them. There's so many because there's so many different rule books. You have high school rules, then you have USATF, you have NCAA, and then you have IAAF. And I've been saying this for a long time. There needs to be just one rule book. And because rules change so frequently, they change every single year. There's a new rule that comes out, or this was amended, or this was updated. But I really truly believe, and it's for the coach's benefit. I wish I had did this. Is this take the officials test?
That's
I'd even
interesting.
encourage, or I would even encourage a coach to even maybe officiate a meet as well. I mean, help out with an event, help rake the pit, help pull tape, help score it. I mean, and a lot of coaches do that. But I think
Mhm.
just getting more education, getting more knowledge. And it's not to say that it's to help them, it's to help everybody so that we all can try to get on the same page. It's tough, but just to, I really think it's for their benefit. because I know it helped me tremendously when I started officiating. It helped my coaching.
Well, I certainly encourage all coaches to have their rule book with them. It always amazes me when
Sure.
someone wants to wag their finger at an official about a rule, and then they don't even have a rule book themselves.
Right.
So I like
Right.
this example of taking the officials test themselves. How does one do that? If a coach right now thinks that's a perfect idea and they want to get on that, where do they go to take the test and study materials and what have you?
Well, you can contact your local association wherever you're living. Like for us, like we have, Massachusetts has like 3 different um, associations. You contact them, you take the test, you pay the fee, you pay your dues. I encourage people to get involved in USATF because we need more officials. A lot of people say that all the time. I mean, there's a lot of officials that are retiring. They're getting up there in age. They can't do it anymore. And I really would encourage a lot of, young athletes. You're getting out of college. You're looking for something to do. If you don't decide to coach, give back, be an official. I'm telling you, it's like, and no, Mike, you're absolutely right. We don't do it for the money. We don't do it for the fame and glory. We do it because we want to keep the sport going. We want to keep things going. And that's so important. Look at all the cuts and we've seen in track and field and cross country with programs being lost and coaches being let go. And, it's the same thing with officials. The more the better. And there are opportunities out there. And there's a lot of good people that I've worked with so many great officials over the years, and I can't think of how many people I have, but there's been quite a bit. But that's really what I encourage. Just get involved. Don't be afraid to get involved. Don't be afraid, because I was in your shoes once too. And I remember, I never thought I would be an official ever. And it's now been 10 years and I'm still involved.
I love that
And,
idea. I love that idea of spreading it down to your team as well. One of the NCAA's more poignant and really specific slogans or logos is we all go pro in something, right? Meaning
sure.
most track athletes are not going pro in track.
No.
We're going to become pro teachers and coaches and doctors and private sector business people, things like that. So I love that idea of even taking it down a level to your athletes that, if here's the thing, if you are going to complain about officials, if you're a coach and you're going to complain about officials, well, then you are beholden to do something to make it better. So what are you doing it better? Are you doing the test yourself? Which I love that idea, Andy. I think that's a great idea. I bet there's people listening right now that they've paused already and they're starting to Google their local USATF chapter to find out. But what about taking it to your kids and having them take the test? And maybe even if 10%, even if 5% of them go on to become officials, well, that's 5% more than what was probably going to happen.
You can't change history, but you can make history. That's what I always told my athletes. I always told them.
I didn't know Andy was going to be dropping quote bombs on us today. Holy cow, you can't change history, but you can make history.
You can make history, okay? You can't change what's happened to you, but you can change how you're going to move forward. And I always told my athletes this too. You got to create your own path in life. You have to create your own path. And if you want to get involved, get involved. It's like, really, you can do this. Like anybody can do this. Like really, it's like, I'm living proof. Like I said, like I told you at the beginning, there's no way I expected my life to go in the direction it goes in, but that it's always twists and turns with everybody. But I encourage people, get involved. If you want to coach, get involved, and you want to officiate, get involved. There's always a way to do it. And always remember this, we all start. I remember just literally shacking shot puts at meets, and then I move up. That's how things work. It's just, we all start somewhere, and it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what school you ran for. My dad always told me this. There's 2 things that don't lie in track and field, and that's to stop watching the tape measure.
That's it, baby. That's what makes the sport better than anybody. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's put you on the spot, the reverse side, Andy.
Sure.
And knowing that you don't represent the entire body of officials, but as an official, so I asked you, what can coaches do to help officiating and officials better? What do you see being on the inside of it? What can officials or the embodiment of officials do to help coaches, high school and college?
We just need to realize that, a lot of these coaches, you got to understand too, some coaches, might have just been thrown into this position and don't know anything about track and field. That is entirely possible, because track and field and cross country are very specialty sports. And there's nothing like other sports like basketball, football, soccer, great sports, don't get me wrong. But these are sports that they are specialty sports, and not every person is going to know everything that goes on. For example, when I first started running at Valley Tech, my parents, my teachers used to be the officials. That's how we run meets. We didn't even have officials at meets. So, a lot of times I had to count my own laps, which was fine. But, there's times where we had to time ourselves. I mean, times have certainly changed now, but, we need to understand too that, it also comes down to funding. A lot of these city schools, they can't even get shoes and proper equipment for their meets as well. I see that in some of the cities in our states, and that's a problem. We can't go into a meet thinking that this is going to be like an Olympic meet. No, I've gone into meets, just doing middle school meets. So like, look, these kids are still learning the sport as well. And we have to realize that this can also be a teaching experience. And this is something that I've learned at a lot of our meetings that we have, that our presidents, of our associations tell us, like, look, you got to understand, like, we've been doing this a long time, but some of these kids or these coaches, this might be their first meet. They may not know. It's a teaching experience as well. Because I remember my first meet, I was scared to death. I remember when I was first started coaching, like, I don't know what's going on. You don't think, but so many things happen at these meets. It's impossible to keep up. It's going like 100 miles per hour some days. So I think we just need to slow down and realize, hey, what if the school just started a program? They might have just started a program. They don't know anything about track and field, none of the rules. This is our opportunity to show them and make a difference and realize that, hey, maybe these guys do know something. And we want it to be a partnership, not a dictatorship.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to remember we're the adults, right? The officials and the coaches. Yes. We're dealing with 14 to 18 on the high school level and 18 to 22-year-olds on the college level. At the end of the day, we're still talking about kids who get nervous, who have peer pressures, that are trying to, maybe look cool in front of their friends, or don't even know what cool is, and things like that, and make bad decisions and make good decisions. I think that what I talked about earlier, those coaches and those officials seeing that themselves as the same team, where we're serving the athletes, I think that could have a lot of benefit. As we start to wrap up here, Andy, so you've done a lot of amazing meets from NCAA's, high school, state meets, Special Olympics. Is there a dream event, or not a dream event, is there a dream meet or a dream event that you would love to officiate one day?
Well, yeah, I mean, we all have, everyone wants to get to the big dance. Of course, I'd love to get to the Olympic trials or to the Olympic Games. I mean, that would be great. But you know what? If I had the chance to officiate a meet that my daughter was in, you can't, no meet would ever be bigger than that. Because at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be a better father and husband every day. None of these other accolades, yeah, they're great and all. But if if I'm not a good father and husband, then I haven't won anything.
Wow, dude. You hit it right there. I mean, I'm a little bit of a loss for words, Andy, and anybody who's listening to this podcast knows that I'm never at a loss for words. Man, how old's your little girl?
Well, you have 3 kids, don't you? Her name is Amelia.
Amelia. How old's Amelia?
She will be... Amelia's 5. She's going on 15. She already thinks she knows everything, but she's very smart. She'll be starting kindergarten in September 1st, and what a moment. It's going to be wonderful.
Man. Yeah, I've got 2, 9 and 6, and my 6-year-old.
God bless you.
My 6 is my little girl, and 6 going on awesome. 16, sometimes 26. I mean,
you know, Mike. I mean, but I'm dead serious. I mean, anything that, if I'm a part of a meet that she's doing, you can't. No meet I ever do will ever top that.
That'd be pretty special. I agree.
It sure would.
Well, Andy, as we wrap up, is there anything else we should know? We said A to Z. Are we at Z, or what else should we know before we sign off here?
Well, I feel like I've told my life story, but I just really just want to say this has been, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've done interviews and I've been in newspapers, and it's all great. But this was so much different because I've seen some of the people that you've had on these podcasts who are some of the biggest names in our sport. And for me to get this chance, I'm just a small guy from a small, I mean, I live in a small central Massachusetts town in Milford, Massachusetts. And to be on this for people who have come on is just, it's really overwhelming, honestly. I mean, the stuff that we talked about today is stuff that I've not really talked about in a very, very long time. And again, I know somebody out there is listening. And when you talked with Rodney Flytime Burks last week, phenomenal interview. And I remember listening to that, nodding my head. Yeah, I agree. We're all the same. We've all come from somewhere. We're all trying to get better, and we all love this sport. It really doesn't matter what level we're on. We're all just we all just love the sport, and that's really that's what I took away from these amazing podcasts that you're bringing. And I hope more people will get involved, because if I didn't come on today, then when? And it's like it was time to start talking, time to get the word out there, and that you know you don't have to be an Olympian to get involved. You
Yeah,
can.
that's
You really don't.
exactly right, Andy. You know,
Yeah,
we don't you have things that you can control and you have things that you can't control.
of course.
And really, you need to take the things that you can't control and put them to the side. You can't control that you're going to be the head coach of University of Florida one day. You know, we had Mouse on the podcast, that you're going to be an Olympic hammer thrower, American record holder like Judd Logan. You don't have control over
Right.
that. What you do have control of is your sphere of influence, no matter where it is. Even in small Milford, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
you aren't at an Austin or LA or Dallas, but you have a huge influence over many, not only kids, but officials, adults, your daughter, your family. You have the ability to make a choice, a lot like the first day of cross country practice. You had a choice: quit or come back. And thank goodness for the sport of track and field that you came back, by the way. I'm so thankful for that. What you
Yeah.
thought was a small decision was a big decision. You affected so many people's lives positively because you made the right decision. But you have a choice under your sphere of influence of, do I make a positive influence or do I make a negative influence? And
Yeah.
whether it is on the 5-year-old kid that is in your neighborhood that you may never see again, they'll move away. Did you leave a positive impression on them? Is it the kid at the long jump runway that gets dead last, jumps 12 feet, and yet you as an official or a coach or a fan or a parent, whoever you are, another athlete, do you give that kid something positive or do you give that kid something negative? And let me tell you what, you have influence both ways. Both decisions carry weight. I think you are carrying a lot of weight in a lot of good ways, Andy, in your area. You're helping kids achieve their dreams. Those are the type of kids that are going to go on to be track coaches, track officials, track fans. We forget about, we need that as well sometimes.
Sure.
And I
Sure.
think your influence is greatly positive in that manner, Andy. And for all of us here at Gill Athletics, you don't have to be I always go back to Mouse for some reason. I love him to death. But you don't have to be the head coach of Florida. You don't have to be the
Yeah.
Olympian. You have to be the positive influence in your life for this great sport of track and field. And you're doing it. You're doing it right there in your area. And that is extremely special. It really is, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And it's been a long road. It's been a great song by the Beatles, "The Long and Winding Road," and that definitely has been my career. Like I said, it's not been from here to here, but a lot of stuff bunched in the middle there. But it's just really just looking back on it, and as I'm sitting out here on my beautiful porch on a summer day, it's just, this sport is just beyond blessed me. I mean, I just can't even tell you, just how much it's meant to me. And as long as I'm moving, I'll be doing something. And that's the way, Mike, before I let you go, 8 years ago, I was in the hospital with a serious back injury, and I could barely even walk. And I said to myself, this might be it. I may not be able to walk normal again. And the fact of the matter is, a year later, I ran a 5K, and it was slow, but I finished. I'm like, this is a miracle, man.
Wow.
This is beyond, it's just beyond words. I mean, it's just, I just keep chugging along. That's kind of my motto.
Always there. You're just always there.
Always there.
I can't wait to be there one day. I'm going to be at a track meet where you're going to be at, man. It's going to be a blast.
And you're going to be chasing your kids around. I'll be chasing my daughter around. We won't be able to talk.
That's fatherhood, parenthood, right
that
there,
is,
man.
that is.
Well,
yes.
Folks, I told you this was either going to be a home run or just the biggest strikeout whiff you've ever witnessed. And I don't know about you, but I think this has been a home run. Getting to meet people like Andy, again, it's just one of the many, many benefits. It's very selfish for me. This is the benefit I get at being your humble host here at the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. And Andy, I'm just so thankful that you would join us today, humble us, and be so open and authentic with your story. Thank you so much, Andy Barron.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was great talking to you today, and just good luck to everybody hopefully with their upcoming seasons, and continue to do what you're doing, Mike. You're doing a great job.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Have a great day, man.
All right, you too.